Okay, so the recording has started, and before we proceed with today's class, so do you have any queries from the previous classes?
Only one. In a spiral model,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of course, it has four phases, you said. Where is the
Yeah,
customer involvement coming? Is it only at the end, the last phase, evaluation, or
the
they're
customer
involved earlier?
the customer involvement will be in the mostly in the last phase, which is I mean where the prototype will be demoed to the customer. But
Okay.
in the risk analysis phase as well, if you are seeing any risk, if any risk has been analyzed, and now
Hmm.
if you are looking for the options, so in that case also you need to go back to the customer, ask their requirement, ask their actual requirement, if and if you are feeling that there is some issue with the requirement itself, so in that
Mhm.
case also you can talk to the customer and ask their opinion about that. So there is
Okay.
a scope of communication with the customer in that phase. Otherwise, in the last phase, obviously there will be the feedback, and those things will be taken from the customer. And it's not like it's only the last phase, and after that you will be done. So this is a spiral model, right? So this is
Hmm.
like iterative. So
Yeah, yeah.
after maybe if the whole sprint, or if the whole say spiral, if one spiral is going for like 1 month, so in the next month again that phase will come,
Okay.
and again we'll talk to the
Right.
customers.
And the testing is done in the third phase? Oh,
Testing is done in the third phase, yes.
okay. That's all.
Okay, okay, fine. So I will start the screen sharing. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible, right?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. So, welcome to the fifth session of our QA training, and today we are going to learn the following things. So, basically, we are going to see the different test phases, or test levels that our whole testing will have. So initially, when the testing will be starting from the development level, and then it will, as we have discussed, like the developers will also test their code, and then it will come for the testing by the testing team or QA team. So there are different levels: component testing, system integration testing, system testing, and the whole integration testing. So there is a it's not like integration testing, it's system integration testing, then system testing, then a whole integration testing. Okay, so we are going to start with the component testing, and throughout today's session we will discuss about this different phases of testing, and we will try to take one single example. So I will take the example of amazon.com itself, and through the different modules of amazon.com, and how we can actually test the amazon.com in different levels. We'll try to understand this different phases like component testing, system integration testing, system testing, and the whole integration testing. Okay,
Mhm.
okay, fine. So as you mentioned, like you need to leave 15 minutes early, so we'll try to complete by then. But if it's not complete, just let me know when you need to leave. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay, okay, great. So what is component testing? So component, what do you mean by component?
Apart.
a part or an unit, right? A
Mm.
unit can be mentioned as a component or a particular module of the whole application of the whole software can be termed as a component. Now, in a software which is not a very like lightweighted, or we can say that if it is having a lot of features, so it is evident that that particular software will have a lot of components in it as well, right? And those components, when the software is being developed, it can be used using it can be developed using any software development life cycle. Okay, that doesn't matter which software development life cycle we are using, but those components will be developed separately, right? So it's not like all the components will be developed at once. So those components or the modules will be developed separately. Now, when the components are being developed separately, so those will be tested separately as well, right?
Mm.
So once a module is developed, so that module will be developed, tested separately. And so first what we need to do is the either the developers or the testers, they will test that particular component or that particular module in an isolation. I mean, without thinking about the whole software, they will just uh, uh, put an idea to test that component individually, just to make sure that this component individually is working fine, right? So if the component is working fine, if that module is working fine, mostly it when it will be integrated with the other modules, it will work fine. If the output that is expected from that module is we are getting the output as expected, so almost we can be assured that when it will be integrated with the other modules, then also it will work fine.
Mm.
Okay, so there is a concept of two things that this is also very important, and this is asked in the interviews. So the concept is stub and driver. Okay, so what is stub and what is driver? So when we do this component testings, or the testing of integration testing, when we integrate different modules, so see, this modules are independent of each other. I mean, they can be developed independent of each other, but when we look at the whole system, there can be dependency in between them as well, right? uh, let's take the example of Amazon.com. So what are the different modules of Amazon.com as we discussed? The first one is the suppose the login module, then the product search module, then the product description module, then we have the cart module, and then we have the payment module. Now this cart module or the payment module, so these are the modules which are dependent on the other modules. So these modules are expecting data from the other modules, and then on the basis of the data they are getting input from the other module or from the higher module. Based on that data, they will perform, and they will give you an output, or they will give the output to some other module as well. Like after the payment is done, what can happen? Either the payment will be successful, or the payment may fail. So if the
Mm.
payment is successful, then it will show you order confirmation page, and then the order will be added to your orders, and then the tracking of the orders you'll get to see until the order is delivered. And once the order is delivered, after that there will be other modules as well. Like for suppose you want to return the order, or you want to replace the order, so for that also separate modules are there. Now if the payment is not successful, then there are different use cases as well. Like if the payment is not successful, it might ask you for payment again, or you can even cancel the payment from there. I mean, so from there are different modules that will come into the picture in a actual business application. So in that case, like when we are doing the component testing, so we will be requiring some data either from the higher module, or we'll be passing the data to some lower module, right? Now the higher module, if you think the example of the amazon.com, so what do you mean by the higher module? I mean, from the use case perspective, if you start, so the login is the first module that you will use, right?
Mm-hmm.
After that it will be the home page, which module you'll be using. After that, the search, if we take the search into the consideration, so search module is there. After that, the product description module is there. Then the cart module is there. After that, the payment module is there. So accordingly, we can if we just put these modules in a diagram. So the higher modules, according to the use case, will be the first module is the login module that you are going to use. After that, the home page, then the search module, then the product description. So now, if you have if you don't have the login module in front of you, that module has not been developed yet. Okay. But suppose the homepage module is developed. Okay. Now you need to test the homepage module. Now, as you need to test the homepage module, you need something. You need some software or something which will mimic as your login module. Okay. So that is called driver.
Okay.
When we don't have any component present which will be calling the lower level modules, so that is called driver. We uh, we need a uh, software, or we need a module which will be mimicking as that module which is actually not developed, and we are not testing it. That is, we are using just to test the lower level module, right? Because the upper level module is not even developed right now. So we are just using a module or using a software which will be just mimicking as the higher level module, so that I can test the lower level module. So in that case, that particular higher level module, the software or the driver, which or the software or any particular component which we are using as the higher level module, which will actually we use that to call the lower level module, is called driver. So in that picture you are seeing this,
Yeah.
there are two modules in the in here. There are two components. One is A and one is B. So A is the higher level module, B is the lower level module. So A you can say as A is a login module, and B is the homepage module, or say product search module. Okay. Now to use the product search module or to test the uh, homepage module, we will need the login module. Now, if the login module is not present and we need to test the lower level module, then we will use some software or some other mimicking component to test this login module, to test this lower level module. So this software, or like the component which we'll use as the mimicking module in the higher level, will be called as driver. Now when the opposite is true, then we will call the lower level module as stub. So suppose we need to we have the higher level module, but the lower level module is not present. Okay. In that case, we will use the higher level module, we will use the lower level software or the module as stub. So just take an example that we have the payment module. Okay. And when the
Mhm.
payment is successful, you should get that order is confirmed. But if the payment is failed, you should get that the payment is not successful, your order is not confirmed. Now this order confirmation module is not developed yet, but the payment module, you have the payment module ready and you need to test the payment module. So what you will do, you will use a particular software or a particular third party module as your stub, which will
Mhm.
just show you if the payment is successful. It will show you yes, your order is confirmed. If your payment is not successful, it will show you that your order is failed. Okay, so in that case we are taking the help of some other modules as the stub to test the higher level module or to test the payment module. So you need to remember that whenever we are testing a higher level component and the lower level component is not ready, so that's when we use tub. Okay,
Mhm.
and whenever the higher level component is not ready and we need to test the lower level component, at that time we will use driver as the, which will mimic as the higher level component.
Mhm.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so you just from here, I mean, component testing, I think you are clear, right? What is component testing?
Yes.
Okay,
Testing
apart,
of a component or a unit or a module.
exactly. And apart from this component testing, you need to remember what is stub and what is driver, because this stub and driver we are going to use in the integration testing as well. So there
Mhm.
also we will be needing this driver or stub. Okay, so let's see what is written here. So component testing is also known as unit, module, and program testing, searches for defects in and verifies the functioning of software. Example modules, programs, object classes, etc. that are separately testable. So each component is a different module, individual module, or it could be individual program or object or classes. So who does this component testing? Okay, so mostly at the beginning the developers will do their component testing when they are writing their programs, these objects and classes and all. So this is from the development side. So to develop a particular module, they will be writing their program, and to test their program they might be doing their component testing. Now when that particular module is ready, then the testers also might get involved to test that particular component. So component testing is mostly done by the developers, but the testers are also involved at the latter stage in the component testing. Okay, so component
Mhm.
testing may be done in isolation from the rest of the system, depending on the context of the development lifecycle and the system. So depending on the development lifecycle, which development lifecycle we are using. So if we are using the, say the waterfall model, so in the waterfall model the testers won't get involved directly whenever the component is ready, because what we do in the development life, in the waterfall model of software development life cycle, in the waterfall model of software development life cycle, it's a sequential model. And
Mhm.
as it is a sequential model, until all the components are ready and they are being developed, it won't go to the testing stage.
Next stage. Yeah.
Yeah, so in in case of waterfall model, what we'll do is once all the components are ready, they will be sent to the next stage for testing, and then we will test, first we'll test the component testing, we'll test each components, and then we'll, it will be integrated and we'll do the system integration testing. But in case of agile model, in case of iterative model, in case of like the incremental model, in that case we have different modules or different builds or different components in front of us, and when these components are being developed, it will be tested at the same time, right?
Mhm.
So independent of the software development lifecycle and the system, this component testing will be done in the isolation. Most often, stubs and drivers are used to replace the missing software and simulate the interface between the software components in a simple manner. So this, you can take the example of Amazon.com as we discussed, and that will be easy to remember as well. Whenever you don't have a higher level component, but you need to test a lower level component, at that time we will use some simulator as the higher level component, which will be called as driver. So do we test the driver?
No.
No, we don't test the driver. We need to test a lower level component, for which we'll use a software as a simulator, and that simulator will be called as a driver. Similarly,
Mhm.
when we need to test a lower level component, similarly when we need to test a higher level component and the lower level component is not present, we'll use a simulator as the lower level component, which will be called as stub. So
Mhm.
a stub is called from the software component to be tested. A driver calls the component to be tested, right?
Mm.
Okay. Component testing may include testing of functionality and specific non-functional characteristics such as resource behavior, that is memory leaks, performance or robustness testing, as well as structural testing, that is decision coverage. Test cases are derived from work products such as the software design or the data model. So obviously, as it is mostly done by the developers or in the development phase itself, because the components are being developed, right? So it is
Mhm.
being developed in the development, it is being done in the development phase itself. So test cases are derived from the work products such as software design. So from the software design we will derive the test cases here. And what are the things that we will test? So the functionality of that component will be tested. Apart from the functionality, some non-functional characteristics are also checked, like the performance. How is the component behaving? Okay, so what is the performance of that component? So what is performance testing or what is security testing? We'll come to this topics later, but just for just for the time being, just remember that some of the non-functional testing will be done on the components also, and some of the structural testing like decision coverage. So what is decision coverage? Decision coverage is from a particular point you might have some branches. On based on the scenario, that branch will be will be taken. Like if we take the example of the payment module, right? So from the payment
Mhm.
module you have two branches. Either the payment can be successful or the payment might be failed. So if the payment is successful, then there will be some business scenarios which will be executed or which will actually occur. And if the payment fails, there will be certain scenarios which will be occurring. So there is a decision here, I mean a tree here, either yes or no. If the payment is successful, if it's yes, then some of the business scenarios will be done. And if the payment is failing, then some of the business scenarios is done. So this is called the decision coverage.
Mhm.
Okay, so based on that, like the different components will be tested. Okay, so we will see what is this driver and what is this stub. So drivers are the dummy programs which are used to call the functions of the lowest module in case the calling function doesn't exist. And what is stub? Stubs can be referred to as a code, a snippet which accepts the input request from the top module and return the results or response. So is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. So component testing occurs with access to the code being tested and with the support of the development environment. So obviously, as we mentioned that component testing is done during the development phase, during the development environment, and it is normally done in a unit test framework. So what is unit test framework? So that is unit test is basically when the developer is writing the code, so they have to test their code as well, right? So when they need to test their code, so that is called as unit testing. And this unit testing, this component testing will be done in that unit test framework. And this is as like we mentioned, this is normally done by the developer who is actually writing the code, and when when the thing is already done, so at that time, I mean when the thing is developed, then the testers might get involved to do that particular test, to do the testing of that particular component. Okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes depending on the applicable level of risk, component testing is carried out by a different programmer, thereby introducing independence. So sometimes what is done is the developer who is actually developing that component, so it is normally I mean it's a standard, like if you are developing something, so you won't be able to find the bug in it, right? So that's why, I mean, we testers exist, right? Because if the developer can also test the functionality of the whole application or the whole uh, uh, of the components, but the thing is like the person who is developing the thing, he will not think about the negative cases that might occur, or they might not be thinking about the edge cases that might be there, right? But as a separate person, as a third person, or as a tester, when you are looking at a particular piece of code, or when you are looking at a particular component or the whole application from the outside, or not as a developer perspective, so you will be able to think what will be the other cases as well, because the developer will always think from the uh, positive side. He won't think that, okay, if this doesn't go in this way, what will happen? But as a tester, as a third person, we need to think it in that way. Okay, this is giving, when I am giving 5 plus 5, this is giving me the right answer, but what if I give 5.5 plus 4.5? At that time, is it going to give me 10 or not? So that is just an example. So as a third person, you need to think of the, or as a tester, we need to think of the other cases as well. And that's why it is not a good standard to give the testing of a component, or to give the testing of a whole software to the same person who is developing it. And that's why there is a separate testing team that is there, or that the in case of the testing of the code as well, the same developer won't test it. It might get tested by some other developer, so that he can think of the edge cases or the scenarios which are not covered in the code, right?
Mm.
So defects are typically fixed as soon as they are found, as like it is done in the development phase itself. So if there is some defect which are coming out after the testing, after the component testing, so those are fixed as soon as possible, or as soon as they are found, without formally recording the incident found. Because if the same developer is developing that particular component, so in that case, if the same developer is testing that particular component which he has developed, so he can fix the code by himself. And in case if some other developer is also testing it, so he can just inform the developer, and they can fix the code. But if a particular tester is testing the whole component, then it can be logged in the defect tool as well, defect management tool as well. One approach in component testing used in extreme programming is to prepare and automate test cases before coding. This is called a test first approach, or test driven development. This approach is highly iterative and is based on cycles of developing test cases, then building and integrating small pieces of code and executing the component test until they pass. So there is an approach which is called as test first approach, or that is called test driven development. So what do we do in test driven development? So this thing you can remember just for now, and we'll talk about this more in the upcoming sessions. So what is test driven development? So test driven development is where the development is driven through testing. Okay, so what is done in the test driven development is, at the beginning, all the test cases are written before, even before the development is started. So what do we do there? So if you have all the test cases written, and if you have those automated, the test cases are automated, so what will be happen is at the beginning all the test cases will be failing. Am I right?
Yeah, because it's not developed.
Yes. So as you don't have anything, obviously all the test cases will be failing. But now when the systems will be developed, the components will be developed, the components which are getting developed, if that is working fine, so some of the test cases will start passing. And with time, when all the software modules are developed and as a whole software is working fine, so all the test cases will pass, and that will give you the exit criteria, or we can stop the testing because all the modules are ready and all your test cases are passing, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
this is called a test driven development or test first approach. So at the beginning, when you have all the test cases ready and you have maybe you may be having a automation of those test cases as well. So at the beginning, all the test cases will be failing, and as the time goes on and the components are ready, they are integrated, and the tests will be executing in a frequency, and finally when all the tests are passing, we can say that the software is ready and it can be sent for the deployment.
Yeah.
So this is a very highly iterative, as you know. I mean, in each iteration the tests will be executed, and we'll see how much tests are passing, because the more the percentage of the tests are passing, that means we are more moving towards the completion of the software development, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so that was all about the component testing. uh, do you have any query from the component testing part?
Mm. No.
Okay, okay, fine. So next is the integration testing. So before we go to integration testing, what I want you to take a screenshot of